Today, I'm really honored to be here. I'm going to show Kel Wer, which is a film based on a trip to Kenya that occurred in the summer of last year. But before I show the film, I'd like to just sort of set the stage for what you're going to be seeing. So I'd like to pose a question to the audience. How many people in the world lack access to an improved water source? Say again? I heard a lot.
1 billion.
1 billion? That's pretty close. Any other guesses? It's actually 783 million, or 1 in 10 people. But the good news is that this number was close to 3 billion as recently as 1990. So we're making a lot of progress on this front, but there's a problem. This is a map that shows where people are in the world as a percentage of each country who lack access to an improved water source. So most of the 2 billion that gained access to an improved water source since 1990 were in places like China and India. Sub-Saharan Africa really missed the boat on this, and most people who do not have access to an improved water source are in Sub-Saharan Africa. So there's an organization known as Engineers Without Borders USA that's working on this problem. They have a vision, we have a vision as an organization, which is a world in which the communities we serve have the capacity to sustainably meet their basic human needs, and that our members have enriched global perspectives through the innovative professional educational opportunities that the EWB USA program provides. Okay, that's kind of a mouthful, but what it's saying is that we are attempting to benefit both the communities that we're partnering with, as well as the students who are involved in that partnership. So we are trying to help meet basic human needs, and we're also trying to train globally responsible engineers. So there's a focus within Engineers Without Borders USA on clean water projects. We partner with developing communities around the world to implement sustainable projects. And to give you a sense of the size of the EWB USA, there are over 12,000 members from 250 chapters across the country, working on over 350 projects in 45 countries. So it's a very large-scale effort. So there was a chapter founded here at OSU in 2006, and we started off with a project in El Salvador, and we worked on developing a clean water system for rural communities in El Salvador from 2006 to 2011. We adopted a second project in Kenya in 2009, and that project is still active. I see one of the travelers from our most recent trip, Sonia, is here in the audience. She just returned from Lela a week ago, right? So I'm going to talk more about this Kenya project today, and the film you're going to see is focused on this project in particular. This is a history of the project. All EWB USA projects start with an application that's submitted by the community that is attempting to initiate a project in their community. So our chapter adopted the Lela Community Water Project in 2009, and later that year had our first trip to the community. That was followed by a water source assessment in 2011. That was the first trip that I went on. And all of this work that we did for all those years culminated in an implementation trip in July 2012. I mentioned Sonia just got back from Lela. She was on the second implementation trip, but that's a whole nother story. So the film you're going to see today is, in particular, going to show this first implementation trip and what happened last summer. So the film, you're probably wondering what Kel Wer means. It means to bring song in Dholuo, which is the local language in Lela. And I'm not going to spend much time talking about the film because we're just going to watch it, and then if you have any questions at the end, I'd love to answer them if we have time.
Water, water, I like you. You make the earth cool and wet, the trees beautiful, wow, and green. Water, water, I like you. You make the earth cool and soft, The flowers pretty sure and colorful. Water, water, I like you. You make us happy. Ha 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 and cheerful.
Lela is a rural community in Kenya. It's a half hour over dirt roads to the nearest major town, and 7 hours by bus from Nairobi. The people of Lela are resourceful. They work, educate their children, tend their crops, all without the basic needs that many of us take for granted. And for much of the year, they deal without the most basic of needs, access to clean drinking water. In 2012, the Oregon State University chapter of Engineers Without Borders USA, in a partnership with the people of Lela, set out to solve that problem. This is their story.
This trip is really the culmination of 3 years of work. There's been dozens of people involved in the project. We've submitted, 7 technical reports, and we've really done our homework.
Engineers Without Borders USA is a national organization that partners 2 communities. The first being our community at OSU, and in this specific case with a community in Kenya. And the goal is to increase the capacity of both communities to meet basic human needs. Lela is on the southwest corner of Kenya, near the border of Tanzania. We're going to be drilling a borehole for a water well and implementing a rainwater catchment system.
Working with the communities as a partnering organization, not as an outside organization that's coming in with this idea of what the community needs and implementing something that isn't going to be sustainable because the community either doesn't want the system that you're implementing or doesn't know how to maintain it. And so we emphasize community leadership and community involvement in all aspects of the project.
The people, I know that they really need water, and if water was available to them, it would change so much, like their lifestyle, what they can do and what they will do, it definitely will change that. And I hope I can be part of that change. I did go through some of those things, and they really stick with me, and I know how important those can be to others as well.
Well, we left the United States 4 days ago, and we had a long trip here to Kenya. Finally arrived in Nairobi the day before yesterday, took a bus to Migori, and here we are in Lela. The order of business for today is to sign the Memorandum of Understanding with the Women's Committee, and we'll be starting drilling, and we'll kind of meet as a team and try to figure out our plan for the next 3 weeks.
The Women's Water Committee is a group of women who have co-aligned in order to bring water to the community, and it's their job to manage the system. The committee is primarily composed of women in the community, just stakeholders who have an interest in getting water for the community.
Approximately, the people who are living in this area, they are like around 2,000 people who are living within Lela. The most interesting thing in this small community is about the togetherness and the culture that our great-grandfather left that has been helping some people maybe to make Lela be known, that even some people from other areas around across the world. I want to see our Lela growing and they get the basics need that we people in the major towns are getting, so that we can cooperate together and grow this world the way it's supposed to be.
The scenery here in this rural part of Kenya is absolutely incredible. It's a place where life still feels like it has a sense of purity. It's not the big cities where there's pollution everywhere. It is a place that is full of poverty. It's only cash poverty. It's not necessarily a social poverty.
The goal of the first phase of the project was to expand the rainwater catchment system at the Lela Primary School by adding 3 10,000-liter tanks, providing access to water throughout the drier months. Clean water and education go hand in hand, with fewer missed classes due to waterborne illnesses or the long hours needed to travel great distances to haul water.
There was a man named Johnston in the community who was an exceptional craftsman, and he is the local Fundi, and he has a group of young men who are his construction workers, and so he's essentially been our subcontractor, and we've just used him for the majority of the rainwater catchment work. So we're paying him, and then we're going to have volunteers also for some of the work that doesn't take as much skill as he and his workers have.
Water is life. It is life to us, to the children, because in this area it gets dry at some point. The rivers get dry, so we have to go a long way in search for water. So when we have water, the tanks, when it rains, then it brings life to Lela. People get water easily, and so they don't have to walk for a long way looking for water.
getting in, this come from inside, so expand so that it cannot come.
Yes. Okay, that works.
The tanks on the rainwater catchment are almost finished. We're just working on getting the lip around the tank in place and concreted in, and then there'll be some little adjustments and fixes here and there, but essentially like the system is in working order, and we're pretty confident that it'll be all done by the time we leave.
Within Lela, or the neighbors of Lela, the schools that are next to Lela, there is no any school, no any single school, even a secondary school, that has got like 3 or 4 or 2 or even 1 water tank that measures 10,000 liters. So the community was like, this is like a dream come true. This is a partnership where I used to emphasize to them that the key thing for a community to grow is for you guys to partner. You don't need to be like different, like you need to be on your own. The best thing is people to partner. So partnership with Engineer Without Borders has really, really helped, and I know the name of Lela, as Lelans, the name has gone very far. Yes.
Anytime a camera is brought out, there's a swarm of children laughing, rolling on the ground, making fun of the Mzungus. I feel terrible walking by the school because they're so incredibly distracted with the handful of Mzungus here that they have probably never seen. But they're incredible. It's really a pure humor. They haven't luckily seen the corruption of lots of big city life, and it's refreshing, to be honest. It's really refreshing to see that kind of humor, that kind of attitude. It's just a good time, really.
The kids are really funny. They are super sassy, and they've been making fun of us a little bit, which has been funny, but they're all really nice, and they're all really smart. The biggest thing that I think people mistake about rural places in Kenya is that the people are of a different kind, maybe, I don't know, but it's a big mistake to think that the people here aren't really smart. Yeah.
For the next phase, the team worked with the community to plan the drilling of a centrally located well, giving residents access to water throughout the year, including the dry season.
Wells in general are always uncertain because you're drilling into the ground and you don't know what is down there, especially in this part of Kenya where there's very limited data available. And so the only thing we're going off of is a hydrogeologic survey that was performed by the government of Kenya, the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, back in December 2011. The survey predicts water at a depth of 85 meters where we're going to be drilling, but that's a prediction. And so with a well, you always have your fingers crossed hoping that you hit water. And even if you do hit water, you don't know if the yield is going to be substantial enough to provide water year-round.
You know, there is a chance that we will get water from this, but the other way around could happen, and we are prepared for that. You know, if it doesn't, it doesn't. We had to try it. It's at some point we knew that with this community we had to try it, so we just are going to try it this time. We all want to think that it will happen, there will come water, and that's what kind of it's most exciting to think about and to hope for, and that's how we will go there hoping.
yesterday we started drilling around 10:30, and we were able to drill to 200 feet below ground surface. We picked up some water at starting to pick up water about 98 feet, and got some significant water at about 120 feet. After that, we didn't pick up any more water. So today we're now left with the choice of whether we drill deeper or we can complete the well at this depth. So right now they're pulling out the drilling bit from the well, and we're going to do a little bit of testing to see how much water is in the well and approximately what the yield is. We have a problem because we don't have a pump, so we'll have to be using the air compressor on the drill rig to blow out water, and then we can measure how fast it recovers. I'd like to be able to test the pulse at 20 liters. It's a very good professional drilling team. They've been just super. My personal interest is that they've mounted a air rotary rig on a agricultural tractor, a full scale air rotary rig, and it's amazing how that works.
The struggle to get water during dry season, it is something that it's really tiresome, and it is hard. That if you come to Lela during dry season, the wells that were there are dry because we have got this, they are very shallow well. So the wells do not have like large volume of water inside them. So you find the people who suffer a lot during dry season are women and children.
Testing was required to ensure that the well would still draw water during the dry season, but the first test pump failed. And as time and funds began to run short, the team had to find another.
That is what I'm working on right now.
Okay.
We're way out and basically in the African bush, so we need to find another pump. And I mean, you can't just run to Home Depot and get another pump or call someone else up, because that takes literally days. And so we're scrambling with the driller, trying to get a hold of another pump to put down the well and to get this kind of information. We finally got a pump, we got the information we needed, and it all worked out fine in the end. But again, that's just kind of the way projects go. It's that kind of environment, and it's different constraints in that sort of culture. So what's really important about the test that we did was to prove that the yield for this well is sufficient throughout the year. So in the rainy season, the ground has more, it has more water in it. This well was deep enough that it goes into the permanent water table. So year-round, thanks to our test, we know that it will have sufficient yield and it will do its job throughout the year and for a long, long time to come.
The well pad has been concreted in. They've disinfected the shaft, and now all they have to do is install the handle on the pump. So that should be in working order either today or tomorrow too. So it's pretty exciting that we've kind of come to the end and we're seeing everything come together. It's pretty cool.
We're coming up very close to the end of the trip, so we're all kind of scrambling. We're fairly tired because of all the stresses in the situation, but also the dynamic of that kind of travel and that kind of project. And out of nowhere, a group of guys come and no questions asked, they just start taking the pipes, fitting them with us, putting it down. We start relaying, and we don't really know who these guys are. And it's happened before. In Kenya, it's really just that kind of culture. If you see something going on, some projects, it doesn't matter if they're actually tired or not, they're just gonna go help because that's just the way it's done. And what we realized later, at basically the grand ceremony for this well, was that those guys who came and helped us were actually the band who would come that day in the back of the pickup all the way from Tanzania. It really stuck with a lot of us as this magical moment.
So then it just gravity flows out of the out of here.
Yep. Wow.
Okay.
Yep, exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
Okay.
One. Here comes. 2, 3. Yay!
Right now, we have just installed the Africa pump on the well which we have drilled, and it's pumping water. The water from the well is coming out, and everyone is so excited. We are so happy that this moment has come, and we are present to acknowledge it. We hope that many people will use this water, and it will have a great quality.
The future of this project is it's a little bit of a mystery at the moment. We kind of are working on talking with the community members about what they're looking for in the future and how they see their community in the next year, 5 years, 20 years down the road. So we really don't know, but we're hoping in the next day or two to do some exploration into what we can do for them on our next trip. It could be another well, it could be another rainwater catchment somewhere else. We don't really know. It could be something totally different. So we're just going to try and, over the next couple of days, try and start to figure that out.
Initially, I thought, well, it's a fun way to get involved and build, get some skills and build some friendships. But everything changed once I traveled. Once you travel, it becomes much more real, and it becomes much more about the partnership that you've made with the community and the friendships that you made. Paul Alongo, who was our translator and our guide for the last trip, he's one of my best friends now. I mean, I call him every week. For me, it's become much more about the personal connection that I have with the people of Lela, and really it comes from an understanding of what their lives are like on a daily basis, and living there in the community for several weeks and seeing the way they live and how great of people they are and how welcoming they are and how generous they are. You really build this connection that's very personal.
Working with Engineers Without Borders has really expanded my knowledge, my ability, and my heart to love the people who are surrounding you. It has really, really helped me in so many ways.
Let him go. Oh, Paul, you just ruined the task. Yeah, leave it for me.
Well, I think we have a few minutes for questions, if anybody has any. Yeah.
Do you consider using a local source, like a local diviner or dowser, to help find water source rather than rely on what you thought was sketchy, hard data?
Well, there's actually a requirement from the government that you have to have a hydrogeologic survey done as a prerequisite for a drilling permit. So that was that was the requirement that we had to go off of, and turned out to be correct. But you know, our mentor Jeff, who we saw in the video, was saying that they're not, you know, those are never 100% accurate. You can't really trust them, but it was the best that we had.
Finding a witch, or do they do that there?
I didn't see any. I wasn't aware of that option, but there may have been. I'm not sure. Yeah, over here. Yeah.
Okay, this is about that map that you showed us earlier on in the presentation. In Central and South America, I noticed there were two countries that seemed to have a lower proportion of people with improved access to water. What were those countries, and why would they have problems with the others?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I would have to look at the map again. I'm not sure which countries they were. But I think the PowerPoint would be posted somewhere online or something. Okay, yeah, great. So I'm sorry I can't answer that question. I'm not sure which countries those were.
What did you work on this summer?
Oh, so Sonia could tell you all about it. She was just in Lela, but essentially we were drilling a second well in Lela. So the first well was successful and it's been great, it's been functioning. But the problem is that the community is spread out over a very large area. So even though we had this one well that was working great, there were still lots of people that had to walk a long ways to get to it. So we drilled a second well in an area that wasn't served by the first well. There was, so that's a great question. There was a man who was from a nearby city who had heard about Engineers Without Borders, and I don't know how he originally did, but he went around and told several villages in the area about EWB, and they all applied for projects. So there are several chapters of EWB working in this one area of Kenya. So there's the San Francisco Professionals chapter that's working in Kapingi, a nearby village. There's the Northern New Jersey Professionals chapter working in Arombe. I may have mixed those up. Anyhow, there's several chapters working in this one area. So they basically heard from this one guy.
So I'm just wondering, with some of the water projects, in terms of really collaborating with the locals, like if there's problems when you guys aren't there, things break down and so forth, do the local folks take care of that?
Yes. So you heard in the film about the Women's Committee, the Lela Women's Water Committee. So they are responsible for collecting fees from every family that's using the well. It's a very modest fee. It's like less than $1 a month. But when they put those fees into a bank account, and then when repairs are needed, they can draw money from that account. So there are a couple, like there's a rubber seal and a couple really cheap parts on the pump that will wear out eventually. And they don't cost very much, but if you don't have an organization there that's responsible and collecting even a small amount of money, then a lot of times they just go into disrepair. So they have that committee that's established that existed before we even arrived, and they also receive support from the local water ministry. It's a government office about half an hour's drive in Migori. So they have basically repairmen who they can call there to come out and fix the well when it breaks down, and they have the money in the account to be able to pay for that.
Can you talk about costs then? Who paid for all this?
So the well cost about $12,000. The rainwater catchment system cost about $7,000. We, as a chapter, do all of our own fundraising. We received grant money from Bechtel and from Boeing. We received a donation. The plane tickets for that trip were donated by Emirates. We do an annual banquet fundraiser in Corvallis. So we do sort of a variety of fundraisers to pool money together to pay for that. So it was, we were really fortunate to have the support from Emirates because they gave us 5 plane tickets to Kenya and they're about $2,000 each. So without that donation, we probably would have had to choose between the rainwater catchment and the well. But with that donation, we did both. So.
Does the town itself have to at least come up with something? I mean, is there...
Yeah, so that's been a point of contention. Again, Sonia could probably tell you more about this, having just been in Lela, but so the Women's Committee agreed to fundraise a portion of the expense of the well, about $200. And the point of this isn't basically the point is that if they have some buy-in in the cost, then they have a sense of ownership over the system. And so they were doing their best to fundraise that money, and they had committed to coming up with it. They weren't able to do it while we were there, and they committed to basically following through with that on the next trip when the next team came. So my understanding is that they paid part of that, and they're still working towards completing that payment. But it's just very hard because most people there are subsistence farmers, and they live on $1 a day, so it's really hard to fundraise. So we tried to come up with a number that was reasonable for a community, but they're still working on that.
So in terms of your own professional goals, how different is this from where you started at the beginning of your college career?
Well, I've shifted a little bit. When I started as an engineer, I saw myself obviously becoming an engineer and working on these types of projects, and then I realized that that I wanted to go into policy, because policy was where a lot of the decisions were made on a larger scale, right? Engineers Without Borders is great, but I feel like we're working at the community scale, and that's wonderful. But if you want to have a larger impact, you need to really be working on policy. And so I'm doing a master's in public policy now, and Nick mentioned that I'll be going to Kenya in September. I'm really excited about that, and I'll be doing research on microinsurance. So I'm basically broadening a little bit, I would say, in terms of what my interests are, but still in poverty alleviation and international development.
Did you dig the well or drill the well in the dry season?
Yeah, it was drilled in July, and August is the dry season. So.
And where were they going previously for a while?
They were walking to Bondo, which is the nearest, has the nearest well to Lela. So it's about 2.5 kilometers one way. So quite a walk.
So say more about microinsurance.
Okay, so microinsurance is, there are lots of types of microinsurance. The specific type of insurance that I'm interested in is weather insurance, and it's a method of protecting farmers from drought. And so farmers pay a small amount of money, an insurance premium, and then they will receive a payout during times of drought. And it's called microinsurance just because it's a very small amount of money. The premiums are very cheap, and the amount of money they're getting is not huge, but it's enough that it gets them through the dry periods and the droughts without going deeper into poverty. So if you don't have any protection from drought, essentially during those periods you have to sell off all of your assets, your cattle, your goats, anything that you have that you can sell, you have to feed your family. So if the thought is that if you could protect these farmers from those dry periods, then they would be, they could help pull themselves up out of poverty, essentially. So I'm going to be researching the impact of a weather insurance program in Kenya, and basically trying to understand the impact of that.
So what's the company that, is it the government that underwrites the insurance program?
No, it's private insurance companies are the ones who underwrite the policies. So they're interested because they can make money off of it. I mean, they're private companies, they can make money off of it just like any other insurance company, but it's scaled down to very small size so that it's intended for subsistence farmers, essentially.
Are they Kenyan companies or British companies or American companies?
They're Kenyan companies. Pardon? Kenyan companies, yeah, insurance companies.
Okay,
Yeah.
one more.
Last question?
Yeah, so prior to drilling a well, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, were there hand-dug wells?
Yeah, so there were 2 wells. Paul mentioned in the film that there were 2 wells in Lela that were hand dug, and they were dug to 75 feet and 95 feet, and they're like 3 feet in diameter. So I was amazed because that meant somebody was down 75 feet in the ground in a 3-foot diameter hole digging. Yeah, they had a concrete casing down the side. The problem with those wells is that they're not deep enough to access the aquifer, and so they're just basically pulling in water that's infiltrating from rainfall, and so they dry up during the dry season.
Okay, we need to leave it there.
Thank you very much, everyone.